Welcome to Crypto Simulation Theory. I'm the Gaussian Snake. Tonight we're going to do a crypto market update. I'm going to take a look at the stock market, gold, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and altcoins and piece everything together to see what's going on in April. We have started quarter two just an hour and a half ago in my time. I'm in Pacific Standard Time, so that's where we're at. Let's go ahead and take a look. This is not financial advice. We're going to start with the stock market because I think that's a good place to start, meaning that, crypto generally follows what the stock market does, although it does decouple from time to time. This is the stock market on a daily time frame going back about a year, and you can see that we have started to kind of tumble down. Gaussian channels turned red. Bollinger Bands are not where you want them to be. We can zoom out to the weekly time frame and you can see the picture doesn't look much better. Maybe it does look a little bit better. We have not yet flipped the Gaussian channel red, and there's no guarantee that we do. We are very close to the median line of the green Gaussian channel, which is around 54.40. We can see that while we did have some impressive buy volume in the middle of March, so far we haven't really seen a lot of buy volume yet this week, although the week has just kicked off. So, we should give this some time. I think it'll look better than this by the end of the week. I don't like the way the Bollinger Band is turned down so sharply, but, that's par for the course in a downtrend. Flip on some moving averages, and you can see that the stock market is not looking great on the weekly time frame with regard to these either. So we are below the 200-week whole moving average, as well as the 20-week whole moving average acting as resistance, the 50 turning down, 100, they're all turning down. So not a great sign. We've made that M shape, which is generally also not a great thing. And it looks like we are at risk of putting in a lower low, potentially, if this downtrend continues. Now, there will be bounces along the way, even if this downtrend has juice to it. But we could just only go off of what things look like right now. And, it doesn't look great in terms of the weekly time frame. Let's go to the quarterly and see what the quarterly Heikin Ashis are looking like. So the quarter one Heikin Ashi candle doesn't look great. I mean, at least it's green and not red, but it doesn't look great. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean anything. If you go back to April of 2018, we had the Heikin Ashi candles. So we quarter two of 2018 that didn't look great, but then the Heikin Ashi candle after that actually ended up looking pretty decent before we headed into some weakness, brief 2 quarters of weakness. So no way to know exactly what's going to happen next or how deep the S&P will fall. If it keeps falling, I mean, things do look bearish for it. So it's hard to imagine that the quarter two Heikin Ashi will look impressive, but we truly never know what's going to happen with regard to, the future. We can just speculate. Now, if we really zoom out on the stock market and look at the 2-week, this is the reverse Chandy momentum oscillator. It's really ugly underneath a red signal line, but it is getting down to some pretty low levels. It went lower in 2022. It reached similar levels in March of 2020. That's a pivotal point that I want to come back to, because I actually do think that the time period we're in right now is quite similar to late 2019 to early 2020, maybe just a little bit more drawn out, depending on how you want to look at it. But clearly the RCMO is in a downtrend, but it doesn't look like it's that far off from reversing. So like if you think back to other times, some of these reversals happened, like we had mid 2015, early 2016. We had 2011. That was like quarter three, quarter four. And then, of course, the great financial crisis. I don't anticipate we're going to see anything like this. I think, it's possible we go a little deeper than we did in March 2020. But maybe not much deeper. Like we're getting into some pretty low levels here. So, and of course we can bounce and then come back down, which is obviously a possibility as well. We are in the negative area. So this is a pretty good, pretty good predictor of an incoming bounce. I think, we probably, this is on a 2-week time frame. So I don't think that this downtrend is going to have like a ton of juice to it. Like I think we've already come down quite a ways. And we probably do need to come down a little bit more. I think at the very least, probably to the March of 2020 level, but that's not that far away on the RCMO. And whether we come straight down or we bounce a little bit on the way, doesn't really matter. We're looking for obviously some form of a bullish divergence to emerge in the coming weeks and months. So I'd say probably months. But yeah, that's kind of how things look right now for the stock market. Now, if we go to gold, I guess I'll just keep things on the 2-week just to kind of point something out. I mean, gold is going parabolic, right? Like there's no doubt about it. Gold moves on a much slower time frame than Bitcoin does. But if we flip on a Gaussian channel on the 2-week, and yeah, I mean, it's just tight. It's concave up. It's just exactly what you'd want to see in an uptrend. And then if we put on some Bollinger Bands, we're flirting around with the upper channel. We're starting to, ride the top. This can sort of be an early predictor of at least some kind of local top. So I think gold may top relatively soon. I anticipate it would likely top by the first half of this year. If we throw on the SAR, we can get an idea of just how toppy gold might be getting. So let's put on the SAR. It looks like it's putting quite a nice parabola, right? So what we want to see is for this SAR to kind of inflect a little bit. So I think gold probably has room to run, for the rest of this the rest of this half of this year. Probably it's a good possibility we see a topping coming around then. So, and if you look at the reverse Channing momentum oscillator, I mean, we have gone higher in the past than where we're at now. Like August of 2019 went pretty high. We're at similar levels to July of 2016 and also similar levels to August of 2011. We're a little bit below that, but certainly gold could go higher, right? And I think it very likely will. Maybe we'll put in a top similar to January 2019, or we could even put in a top that's quite high with gold. This is definitely a bull trend. And seeing gold this bullish is not generally a great thing for the economy, right? You generally don't want to see gold going crazy because people usually flock to gold when they don't have a lot of confidence in the economy. So yeah, I mean, you have gold looking really bullish. You have the stock market not looking great. What about Bitcoin? Now, the one time frame that Bitcoin doesn't look so bad on is the 2-week time frame. We've got the Gaussian channel green concave up. Although we do have Bitcoin underneath the median line of its weighted Bollinger Band. So that is something to kind of watch out for whenever that happens. It didn't mean a thing in 2024, but sometimes it can lead to a change in trend. So we'll have to watch this closely. But there is a lot of support below, right? Like this is a technical uptrend. Gaussian channel is really beautiful on the 2-week. I mean, this is really strong bullish momentum, and it's pretty much carried out since December of 2022 onwards. Once we got the final bottom for Bitcoin. So we've got like 63K down here, which is probably going to rise up to close to 70K, maybe by the time price would reach it, if it does reach it, assuming that the uptrend stays, the macro longer term uptrend stays intact. We can also zoom out to, I'm going to wait to zoom out to the quarterly. I want to look at the Channing momentum oscillator. So let's go ahead and look at that for Bitcoin. And it was a concerning pattern that we had form with this, right? Like we have the shoulder, the head, and the shoulder, and the signal line is red. So this is another thing, which is, I guess the question is what's going to happen from here? Are we going to get below the zero line? I mean, I think there's a good chance we do. I can't say for sure, but I think it could happen, especially with this very ominous pattern. But the market could recover a lot sooner than people think. It could even recover this quarter. In fact, I expect Bitcoin to recover before the stock market does. So let's say the stock market is like 3 months away from bottoming or 4 months away from bottoming. I'm just making this number up. And I think Bitcoin could bottom 2 months maybe before that happens. Like, that's what you typically see when things start to turn around is you'll see Bitcoin outperform the stock market, which it's already starting to do. If we turn on the stock market pair strength indicator. Give me just a moment to do that. This is, of course, on the 2-week time frame, but you can see that we are starting to show some relative strength to the stock market. We'll have to see if there's follow through with this or if it's just a false signal. But nonetheless, on the 2-week time frame, Bitcoin's bull trend does still look intact. And I know that's a little hard to believe for some of you after what you've experienced with it, but it is holding up relatively well. Let's throw on some moving averages. These are longer time frame moving averages because we are, of course, on a 2-week time frame. We can see the 20s closing in for a death cross with the 50. However, price has been riding the 100 week HMA, I'm sorry, the 200 week HMA, it is now below it, which is not a great thing. So 200 is in white, 100 is in blue, death cross coming in. We do have the 200 week, the 400 week. I get these mixed up because I'm on a 2-week time frame. We have the 400 week creeping up slowly. It's currently at around 62K, which, remember, that was close to the median line of that Bollinger Band that we looked at. Median line of Gaussian channel that we looked at. But the thing that's of significance to me is this really strong golden cross that we had in June of 2024 with the 200 week and the 400 week. This is something that took a long time to happen. Like, we had the death cross in November of 2022 and then a golden cross in July of 2024. These golden cross events don't happen often, okay? In fact, they only happened once before. So this is the second recorded golden cross of these moving averages, which speaks to the relative strength of Bitcoin. So I really feel like any downtrend that we get, I really don't see price getting, unless it turns into a full-blown recession, right? That the big R word, recession, which right now I'm not going to assume. I've said this in my previous videos. I'm not going to assume we're in a recession until the data points us in that direction. I don't really see price going too much below probably this 400 week. Now, in COVID 2020, we did get a recession. So if we get a recession, all bets are off. And in that case, I think we will go below the 400 week. But this is one area where I think we may differ from 2020 is I'm not sure we'll see a recession. I know we're seeing a correction. That's definitely happening. But as far as like a full-blown recession that would take us down to like the 40K or high 30s or like, these breakout levels from 2023, I don't see that happening right now. Like, there just isn't evidence that that's a likely outcome. So I do see, might see a bounce from Bitcoin here, but I think it likely will roll over one more time, potentially in May, if we get a really nice green April. But yeah, it's hard to imagine that we would see too much more weakness, especially extending past half one of this year. I think once we get into half two, it's likely we'll see some strength return to the crypto market in a more sustainable way. Bitcoin dominance on the 2-week is in a really interesting position right now. The moving averages, this is going to be your 40 week, your 100 week, and your 200 week are all bunched together. I don't think we've ever seen this before. Then you have the 400 week way below at around 51% dominance. Very interesting, right? So you have a golden cross with Bitcoin dominance that occurred in July of 2023, shortly after the bull market really established itself on the super strong bottoming pattern. Bitcoin dominance has been in a bull market ever since. If we throw the Gaussian channel on, I'm going to take the moving averages off for now. All right, let's go throw a Gaussian channel, some Bollinger Bands. It looks really bullish, right? On the 2-week, it does. It's just riding the upper part of the Bollinger Band, but the Bollinger Band. But we saw in late quarter 4, early quarter 1, some weakness from dominance, really for the first time since January of 2024. And it's a bigger breakdown than before. So these are like early signs that Bitcoin dominance, its glory days are coming to a likely end. We've been saying that for a while on this channel. Honestly, it's taken a lot longer than I thought it would. But I really think what needs to happen is the market needs to perceive that we're getting some quantitative easing. I think quantitative easing is likely to occur as soon as May of this year, certainly by the summer. And so I think around the time the market starts to price that in, you're very likely to see Bitcoin dominance roll over. I think the 786 fib is going to be nearly impossible for dominance to overcome. So could it shoot back up to it? Sure, that could happen. Will it? I don't know. Right now, it's struggling a little bit. If we take a look, I don't know why I keep closing this out. I should just double click it out. But you guys know I don't do things efficiently. Yeah, sorry about that. I know it can be kind of annoying. If you look at the reverse chanting momentum oscillator, Bitcoin dominance hit these top levels that match up with some previous top levels, of September 2019 and December 2015. It already hit it in 2023, and we have yet to go back above it. In fact, this trend has been mostly sideways. If anything, it looks like it's kind of reversing to the downside. And if we zoom in on dominance right now, the signal line is actually red. And look, it's been putting in lower highs and potentially forming a lower low, indicating the early weakening signs of Bitcoin dominance. Okay, so that's what I'm kind of seeing there. I'm seeing a transition happening likely mid-year or sooner, potentially. ETH Bitcoin, of course, which has had an absolutely terrible couple of years here, still hasn't deviated from expectation. I mean, look what happened to ETH Bitcoin from May of 2017 all the way down to September of 2019, right? It was a pretty long bear market for ETH Bitcoin. Altcoins did not do well during that time. We know that Bitcoin had a Bitcoin only rally that occurred in early to mid 2019 that eventually got sold off. And back then, people thought ETH was dead, that it wasn't coming back, was never going to return. Now, Bitcoin did break a long-term trend line. I don't have it drawn now because it's broken, but it broke a secondary long-term trend line. And I mean, this has been a brutal downtrend as well. And you could argue it started right here in December of 2021. And here we are in March 2025, almost a 4-year long bear market for ETH Bitcoin. That is insane. That is absolutely incredible. And not in a good way either. But it's not like abnormal either. Like you would kind of expect that. This looks very surprisingly like a healthy pattern, healthy formation. Could we be entering into a final bottoming process for ETH Bitcoin? I mean, I thought that already happened. Clearly it didn't. We broke down below some key fib levels. I'll throw the fibs back up. I think I still have them. Yeah, so I mean, like these fibs are based on a swing high to swing low, I think from here, or swing low to swing high. Yeah, from here to here. I know I have other fibs. Pretty much look the same. I don't know. Good enough. So yeah, like I guess I'm just looking at this and not remembering how I set these up. But regardless, using this as the swing high, we're below the 236 fib. Now, could we potentially enter into this red zone? This red zone is between 0.017 and 0.02 Bitcoin. I think it's possible. I can't tell you for sure if it will happen, but we are beneath this trend, this upward sloping trend line. We just found it as resistance recently. ETH Bitcoin is not showing the kind of strength we want it to show. Now, look how far away we are from the Gaussian channel. I mean, this is unprecedented. The Gaussian channel is still turning down at the 618. Right? The median line of the red Gaussian channel is like practically beneath the 786. So we have yet to see any kind of mean reversion from ETH Bitcoin. Like really since since mid 2024, it's just been straight down. I think there's a good chance that we're going to get a really sharp, strong bounce out of ETH Bitcoin because metrics don't like to stray too far away from their averages. And right now we have like a spill out. We went in that last time we had a spill out like this was in late 2019. I think something very similar is happening right now. I think ETH Bitcoin is very likely to find its final bottom, if it hasn't already, this quarter, in quarter 2. I don't think this is going to extend any longer than that. Let me be clear about this. This bear market has gone on for long enough, and I believe we are in a transition. If I overlay, I'm going to show you a few things, right? I know that these crypto market update videos can get very long, so I'm going to try to get to the point a little bit more in this one. I really think things are going to rhyme with late 2019 to early 2020 as far as ETH Bitcoin goes. So like if you look at what happened in that time frame, right, where we had some rate cuts starting to happen. ETH Bitcoin fell into the first rate cuts, but once we got near that rate cut floor, in fact, we didn't even have to get to the rate cut floor. Just once we got near it, we started to see ETH Bitcoin really start to take off, right? We started to see the bull market form for ETH Bitcoin. I would want to make this green, not red. Anyways, yeah. So, sorry, I'm not going to mess with the coloring and waste your time with that. But, you get the idea, like the rate cuts started to happen. And that's what that quantitative easing is exactly what ETH Bitcoin needed. And in fact, a lot of people don't know this, right? ETH Bitcoin had its bottom in September of 2019. It put in a double bottom in January of 2020, which was actually a higher low, a slightly higher low relative to September 2019. And then in March of 2020, ETH Bitcoin put in a higher low. A lot of people don't know that, but Ethereum was already starting to show relative strength against Bitcoin, even on that final drop. I think something similar is at work here, right? So we had a rate cut, ETH Bitcoin fell, and I think we're likely to see another rate cut in May. Does that mean that ETH Bitcoin hasn't bottomed yet? Not necessarily, right? Because remember, last time ETH Bitcoin bottomed in September, that was the bottom, right? So we could have the bottom. I'm not saying we do or we don't. Okay, I mean, right now the probabilities for the May meeting are still 87% higher for longer. Rate freeze. Okay, and I know that's not what we want to hear. Now, granted, there's still a long ways to go. Let me just fix my camera. There's still a long ways to go before the May FOMC, May 7th. I mean, we have over a month before we get to that. So this could change quite a bit. Let's go take a look at the probability spread right now. Okay, so the first cut is priced in for June. So perhaps the stock market sees some pain in Q2. It's kind of iffy on how this will affect Bitcoin. We know it wasn't good for Bitcoin last time. But this is a different environment, right? Bitcoin does not have to bottom on a rate cut bottom. It can bottom at any time. It's just that perception of quantitative easing and money printing that we need to really turn the crypto market around. Second rate cuts priced in for October, and that's it for the whole year. So, and even then, it's possible. It's hard. The market's not even really sure. Actually, I should correct myself. The market's just very unsure. They know rate cuts coming in June. They're pretty sure about that, and then they're not sure what's going to happen in July. They think maybe we'll have another rate cut. As you can see, 44% actually thinking second rate cut, and September. So they're thinking we could be pretty aggressive in the summer and early fall. The market really has no idea. That's what this is telling me. They have no clue what's going to happen. They're not certain. And that's why I think you're seeing some weakness in the stock market. But I can't help but think this next rate cut is going to potentially result in a higher low for ETH Bitcoin. Okay. We could see ETH Bitcoin really start to make the turn at the end of this quarter that we're currently in, or potentially the beginning of the next quarter. I'm not sure it will even take that long, but it's always better to err on the side of caution. So you can see we're starting to come down just like we did in late 2019 into 2020. That coincided with the Bitcoin's bottoming process. I think something similar will take place. I can't tell you if it's going to happen in this half of the year or more likely to happen in the second half. If I have to go by the CME group market participants, then it would seem like Q2 to Q3 would be the likely, place where you'll start to see some real strength form. But we only have one data point to go off of, really, like one major data point. There's really not much else to go off of in Bitcoin's history. So I don't want to use too much confirmation bias, just to say, hey, as the perception of quantitative easing comes in, it's probably going to be a really good thing for ETH Bitcoin. If we look at the reverse channel momentum oscillator for ETH Bitcoin, it has yet to take out its bottom at negative 78.74 in November of 2023 on the 2-week time frame. It has just been straight down since April of 2021, just lower high after lower high of ROI, right? This April 2021 Chande momentum oscillator top does not correspond to ETH Bitcoin's price top, but it certainly shows a weakening pattern at play, right? Like a weakening pattern, and ETH Bitcoin has been just tumbling ever since. December of 2024, it printed a slightly higher low on this metric. It's rolling back over. It'll be interesting to see where things fall out, if we get another higher low or not. I think a good predictor of that could be the TRIX bubble. So let's go ahead and look at the TRIX and see what's going on there. So TRIX has looked really, really ugly. Just not able to get above the zero line. Now, look, we are starting to see a little bit of a curl happening here right now. So could we see some kind of mean reversion? I think it's likely that we get some kind of relief this month, but then I think we may drop again for ETH Bitcoin. So altcoins could see some relief. I think that is a likely scenario for April. I just don't think that relief will necessarily be sustained. Okay, and we can take a look at altcoins and see what's going on with them. I prefer to look at them on, well, let me just set this up before I share with you, right? So altcoins have not been performing well against Bitcoin ever since January of 2022. This is others versus Bitcoin. I like to look at others versus Bitcoin because it gives me kind of a larger collection of altcoins relative to, of course, it does exclude the top 10 altcoins, or top 10 coins, I should say, but it includes a whole bunch of others. And I do like to look at this, why it's called others. So we got a longer red Gaussian channel than we had before, but it's tighter, indicating less volatility, which is a good thing for the altcoin market. Bitcoin dominance has not reached levels that it reached in the past cycle. Just like with ETH Bitcoin, this process is taking longer to play out than it has in the past. The Gaussian's channel is still red and tight, indicating a fairly stable downtrend. I think there's a good chance we see some mean reversion. Notice I'm saying mean reversion, and I'm not saying a sustained reversal. Now, could some altcoins have bottomed against Bitcoin already? It's possible. It's certainly possible. But have all of them bottomed? I don't think so. Look, we've got a head and shoulders formation that hasn't even really fully played out yet with others Bitcoin. So while a bounce is certainly possible here, I really don't think that it's going to be sustained. And I think altcoins will fall again, potentially in May if April is a strong month, which I don't know if it will or it won't be. Certainly could. We could try to make one more attempt here at the 0 line, and then I think we will fail in May. Most likely. I don't want to make specific predictions like that, but this is just not a strong sign what I'm seeing here. So head and shoulders, it's probably going to go down further before it reverses. So yeah, I mean, altcoins right now still look not great. And this is kind of, if we go back to the CME FedWatch market rates, you can kind of understand that, right? Like, the market is not pricing in a rate cut until June. So if we're waiting till June, then I don't expect altcoins to show any strength that is at least sustained between now and then. I think the bear market for others Bitcoin will probably continue. Others Bitcoin is currently at a valuation of 0.14. I think, hopefully it maintains the, what low is that from? Like the December 2020 low of 0.08 Bitcoin. So still a ways to go before it would fall that far, but I don't think that this bear market for altcoins against Bitcoin is over. I think it still has room to go. I know that's not what you want to hear, but the only good thing I can really tell you is that I think we're kind of due some kind of mean reversion for some altcoins. Can't say all of them will get a mean reversion. Solana Bitcoin looks horrible. At least last I looked at it, it doesn't look good at all. But let's go ahead and take a look at the altcoin season index. Some of you guys really like to see this. I mean, no surprise, it's Bitcoin season, right? What an ugly breakdown. I didn't think this would happen. I was a lot more bullish than probably should have been when this was happening. We had some Dino coins make a run, but that was it. So it looks like we're putting in like a double bottom here potentially. That doesn't mean we're out of the woods yet. I mean, we're firmly in Bitcoin season. I didn't think we'd sweep these lows from 2024, but here we are doing it. It's just, this is what quantitative tightening does. It's not going to really let your market run, but we could see some mean reversion this month that might take us, higher. Will we get a full-fledged altcoin season? I kind of doubt it, but we could certainly maybe retest some of these breakdown points, which I ultimately expect will fail. I think half two of the year is going to be a much different story than what's been happening in half one. I'm very bullish on half two. I'm not I'm lukewarm on half one. Honestly, I expect to see some kind of mean reversion pump happen. I think April could happen, but I'm calling this video April Fools because I think we're going to have more weakness show up. Unfortunately, I think it's likely before the market really starts to make that reversal into the risk on bull market, just like it did from late 2019 to finally going risk on in mid 2020. Yeah, speaking of the devil, here's Solana Bitcoin. Solana Bitcoin actually failed to put in a higher high this cycle. That's not really a bad thing. I mean, other than Ethereum, very few things can do that with Bitcoin over multiple cycles. Bitcoin usually wins. But look at the reverse Channing momentum oscillator. I mean, we reached peak levels in December of 2023. This looks just like ETH Bitcoin. Like, it really just looks just like it, right? Like what ETH Bitcoin went through in the early stages of decline. However, the RCMO is at negative 38.96. Could we see maybe a higher low and then come back up again during a presumptive altcoin season? Sure. I think Solana is not one we should fade into oblivion. I think it will likely. I mean, this was a really strong double bottom. Could we be going to test this bottom? I mean, I don't know if this bottom will get taken out. I don't want to like make predictions that I'm not sure of, but the RCMO has fallen quite a bit. The lowest it ever went was in May of 2022. So we're getting near those kind of levels. Again, everything's pointing to half two of the year being a lot more bullish than half one. So if we get a mean reversion from Ethereum, I'm not sure Solana will follow suit. I think it might just be Ethereum only. Mean reversion, Ethereum certainly more do a mean reversion than Solana is. That doesn't mean that it has to happen, but I do expect to see some altcoins popping off a little bit between now and the end of quarter two. I can't tell you exactly when that will happen, but I expect it to happen. But I don't think of it as anything other than just a temporary bounce, and then we'll probably roll back over again. And I still expect that Bitcoin is likely to have probably some kind of dramatic drop before everything kicks off. Like it's happened every cycle. You can see sort of that it's likely to happen at some point. Exactly where that drop will be and how it will play out is anyone's guess. But I do not think Bitcoin has bottomed yet. Let me be clear on that. I do not think it has bottomed, but I think a bottom is likely to occur in this half of the year, beginning of half two at the latest, is kind of my estimation. Could it take longer than that? Sure, it could. I don't have a crystal ball, but that I'm just calling it as I see it right now. So those are my thoughts with Bitcoin, that I think we could see some relief definitely come in this quarter, but I don't think it will necessarily be sustained relief. I think Bitcoin needs to have a pretty dramatic drop. And that could just be to like 65K or, 63K. It could retest the 400 week or something like that. But this head and shoulders pattern, in my opinion, needs to play out. And whether it plays out to a higher low relative to August of 2024 or a lower low is kind of irrelevant. But I think it needs to play out, and that could take some time, right? It could take us even into the next half. But of course, there's bounces along the way. Every one of these kinks up is a bounce. So just keep that in mind. So overall, I think we've been through quite a bit in quarter one. It was not a good quarter at all. And I think quarter two, while I feel it will be a slightly better quarter at times, I also don't expect that the market will turn around in quarter two sustainably. I'm looking more towards the back half of the year for our bull market to kind of make that transition from risk off to risk on, and it should coincide with rate cuts. I just can't tell you exactly which rate cut will be the magic one to get Bitcoin going again. Maybe one thing we can look at before we go is the money supply. One thing I can tell you just from looking down here at the RCMO is that money supply does not make drops very often with regards to its RCMO, right? You're more often flatlined at higher levels for longer than not, right? Like look at this period from February 2011 all the way to May of 2022, just nonstop money printing. And it looks like we're barely getting started. So I think like it makes more sense to be bullish than to be bearish for the long term. Now, for the short term, it's okay to be a little bit bearish. Look at this. We got a nice inflection. Guys, we're going back up. Like, we're going to print. It's just a question of, is it going to happen this quarter? Is it going to happen next quarter? It's going to happen sometime this year. We're going to start printing money. I know the tariffs are scary. I know they're having some unintended consequences, but we're going to be just fine. I think we're going to get a raging bull market that will last longer than people think. And it's going to be led by Ethereum. That is my thesis. That is going to continue to be my thesis until it's either disproven or it's right. Like it's just what makes sense given the data. It's just what makes sense. And that's what guides my analysis of the market. So if you made it this far, congratulations. You've survived another one of my long videos. And hopefully you've learned a lot. So if you like the content, I encourage you to join my Telegram channel. I'm in there a lot more often than I'm on YouTube, but I do like to produce really high quality YouTube videos. Quality over quantity, always my mantra. So be sure to subscribe to my channel, Crypto Simulation Theory, and be sure to hit that notification bell. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, share it, comment. All that helps increase my reach, especially at times when I haven't been posting videos as much. The algorithm will like me a lot better if you engage with this content. So would appreciate that. And that's about it for now. So I hope you have a great week, and let's look forward to some mean reversion bounces hopefully in Q2 of 2025. I think it's likely to happen, but just try not to get your hopes up too much just yet. We need to be patient. This temporary bout of market weakness needs to play itself out. And so this is not financial advice. This is not a crystal ball prediction. These are just my educated and informed opinions based on data analysis. If we could figure out the market perfectly, then there'd be no need to make guesses, right? And I'd be so rich that I would own everything. So yeah, not going to happen. All right, folks, that's it. Until next time, bye-bye.